The Without Fear of Her Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom through investing in real estate. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life you love. I'm your co-host, Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the book, Without Fear of Her Future.
And I'm Melissa Baker, real estate investor and fitness coach specializing in turning properties from drab to fab. I'm here to help motivate and inspire you to build your dream life because, girl, you deserve it. Welcome back to the Without Fear of Her Future podcast. Today we're talking about something that sits at the foundation of everything, our mindset. Not just positive thinking, not just hustle culture, but how faith and mindset collide when you're building business and becoming who God has called you to be.
Woo,
so because you can have strategy, capital, education, specialized knowledge, and opportunity, but if your mindset isn't aligned, you're going to sabotage all that God is doing and trying to grow in you. So this episode is about growth from the inside out, who you're becoming while you're building. So let's start here. Mindset, it's a spiritual issue. It isn't just psychological.
Yes.
It's spiritual. You know, scripture tells us in Romans 12:2, to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So that tells us that it starts in our mind, right?
Yeah. This is my topic.
You love this,
talking
don't
about
you?
this
I
kind
know.
of stuff. And I agree. We can have all the resources, all the wisdom, all the things in the world, but if our mindset, you just said it best, we sabotage ourselves.
Yes.
I've done it. I've watched other people do it, and it's such a sad thing. Such a sad thing.
Yep.
So, all right, let's talk about how do you renew your mind? When it tells us to do that, how do you think that we renew our mind?
Well, first of all, we've got to, what we put in comes out, right? And what we put in is things that we think about and focus on. You can love God, but still think really small. And He didn't create us for small things.
True.
He didn't create us for small things. So I feel like there has to be a shift, right? As we're growing spiritually, we grow in every way. Physically, we grow mentally, emotionally. We're able to do more and be more, right?
I agree. I think if we're going to renew our minds, it's very purposeful. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think it is taking in every single thing that we take in on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Who we hang out with, where we hang out, what we listen to, whether it's TV, the radio, even news, garbage in, garbage out.
This is so true.
I mean, so everything that we take in physically, mentally, even visually, those things affect us. And I also just think that one of the best ways to renew your mind is the Word of God, because there's no truer truth than the Word of God. And I know for me, whenever I am feeling any kind of a way, the Word of God is what gives me hope. It's what gives me confidence. Right. It stirs my faith, and I can think bigger. It expands it stirs my faith is really what it does. So I think that's the key, along with all the other things we just mentioned.
Yes. Without the spiritual aspect, without digging into your faith, I feel like we're really limiting ourselves from what God created us to do. And in business, do you have a fear of risk? There's a lot of people who they just live in fear.
Yep.
You talk about fear a lot. You had a spirit of fear on you for a long time.
I did.
So that spirit of fear, fear of taking risks. If we never take risks, we're not ever going to grow. We're just going to stay where we're at, stagnant. Overthinking decisions. Now, I know a lot of our listeners, if you've been through the MasterClass and have joined the network, what is it called?
Analysis paralysis.
Yes. There's so much education. But overthinking, and I do this. It's really hard sometimes for me to make a decision because I'm just overthinking it, and I need to just pinpoint in and make the decision.
Yeah, and I think there's this happy medium of overthinking and also just not making rash decisions. And that's wisdom. Right?
Yes.
Because you can just, and this is what I've learned. I'm not much of an overthinker. I probably lean more towards the making some impulsive decisions.
Yeah.
However, we can really walk in disobedience when we overthink. Because I know for me that I'll feel like I'm supposed to do something, and in my mind, I'm going to do it. I'm just not ready to do it yet. And I'm going to say, sometimes we lose the opportunity.
Right.
That time is no longer. And that's
true.
And that is a kind of a, this is a new revelation to me, because I just had some things happen in my life I brought it on myself. I felt like I was supposed to do something and I didn't do it, and that turned into a disobedience, and it caused havoc in my life.
Right.
So now I am having to think, okay, when God tells you to do something, you better do it now. Which this is getting a little bit of a little rabbit hole from mindset, but whenever I'm just thinking about,
Yeah. Well, the obedience is a big part of it, you know.
And old mindsets don't automatically fall off.
No.
We have to push those off the cliff. We have to reroute our brain, and that takes work.
It really
and again, I think part of it is hanging out with the right people. I want to stay on this. You and I are very particular about who we hang out with.
This is
and
true.
so we have, regularly that we'll get together with other girls, or, Danette. And I feel like every single time that happens, we're revived. We stir each other. We're ready to tackle. Our faith is built up. And versus we could hang out with certain people that will suck the life out of you. They're Debbie Downers.
Yes.
They're, all they want to do is talk about the negative or gossip. And, that is not who we are. But in order to get rid of a bad mindset that maybe we've had our whole life, maybe it was passed down from our families, or, even coworkers, if they're negative, that gets off on you.
Right.
It rubs off on you without us even realizing it. So today, I want our thinkers just to think, what mindsets old mindsets, wrong mindsets, negative mindsets, do we need to recognize and say, you know what, I am going to push that off the cliff, and I'm going to start thinking positively.
Yeah. Because it does make a difference. Everything, it does start with our mind. If our minds, whatever we think about, we bring about, and those negative things, they just, it can totally set your tone for the day,
Yeah.
And
you mentioned that fear of risk and just always playing it small. And I think we both know people who do that. And they always, the most frustrating people, I can respect people that just know that's their life. I'm just going to live this small life over here. What will drive me crazy are people who are always talking. They're always going to do something. They always have this big dream, but they never do it.
Yeah.
And they're always just, even when opportunity shows up, they don't take the opportunity. They always have an excuse, or they're overthinking it, or that season runs out.
Or they feel unqualified. And you guys, I think that we're not really qualified for anything that we're called to do. God stretches us to become more and be more. I think the more we say yes and we take those steps of faith, the more He entrusts us with.
And the more confidence we gain.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the truth is growth really requires an identity shift.
Yes.
And one of the hardest parts of growth is that our old identity, that's not going to take us into the next level.
No.
We've got to constantly be growing. Growth requires identity shifts. And one of the hardest parts of growth is that old identity is not going to take us to the next level.
No. You can speak from experience there.
I can. On a recent post in the rain, we posted from the very first MasterClass. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it kind of went through where we are now from the very first. And oh my gosh, it was so fun to look at, but it was also cringeworthy. When I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this one where I'm in this little room. It's just a corner. It's so pathetic. And there I am just teaching away.
But you had to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere.
Yep.
And you won't, and you have to get rid of your pride. It's not going to be perfect.
Nope.
And you just have to do it. But here's the deal. I was teaching the exact same information. The information was good. It was just the presentation was pretty pathetic. But girls, I'm just telling you, start ugly. Just start with what you have and then develop it.
Yep. But the important part of what you were saying here is that you were open to that growth and to changing, not staying where you were. You could have stayed in that little room.
Yeah.
You could have kept the MasterClass there and grown your little network there. And it wouldn't have become what it is today. but you didn't. You shifted your mindset and allowed God to really grow something that has impacted thousands,
Yeah.
you know?
And here's the key is God doesn't want that just for me. He wants that for every single woman that's listening. He has a plan for you. He wants you to do something amazing. And it takes you changing that mindset and saying yes. And maybe sometimes failing. How many times did if we flounder and, you walk out of a room and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. But you just do it.
Yeah.
And God will bless that and it takes you to the next level and the next level and the next level. So my goodness, if you're listening today, I feel like there are just some people that you've got a calling, there's something that you want to do, but you've just let that fear and that mindset and that fear of risk and you're staying small. And listen, we're in a new year, 2026. Let's jump. Let's take that leap of faith and see what happens.
God is calling us to do some great things this year.
Yes.
I had that stirring in my spirit, as I was praying. I had told you, the word of the year. We've talked about that a lot. And the Lord hadn't given me the word, but he gave me this feeling, this stirring in my bones that there's something this year. This year holds some really big things, and I don't know exactly what they are yet, but I'm really excited to see what he's got brewing for sure.
You know what? You get what you believe.
Yeah.
We prophesy our own future, and that's again why mindset is so important. If you believe that this year is going to suck, it's going to suck. If you believe it's going to be great, I believe every single year of my life is going to be the best year. I really do. And I'm going into 2026, and I'm just believing, okay, God, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? Let's do something profound. Let's make a difference. I'm ready. Yep. Here I am, Lord, send me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to step out. Be willing to grow, be willing to change. It's uncomfortable. It'll really make us realize how much we are a little bit stuck maybe in our old ways of thinking. Yeah. And so we have to be open to those new ways. It's a stretching season for God to really reveal in us what needs to change. Yeah. And you have to be open to it. I don't want to be stuck here forever. What I'm doing right now, I love what I'm doing. I love, a lot of the aspects of my life and the blessings that God has given me. But I don't want to stay here because I know that He wants to use me in ways I can't even fathom.
That's right.
Right?
And here's the deal. We're never going to feel ready.
No.
We're never going to wake up one day and go, oh, today's the day. I'm going to go conquer the world. You don't wake up, like if you were afraid of risk yesterday, you're not going to wake up today and not be afraid of risk or fear or failure. You have to do it afraid.
You do.
You have to do it afraid. I always like to say, shaking in your heels.
Yep.
You just have to do it. And I can't tell you how many times I have been shaken. I mean, nobody would know. You put on that smile and you do the thing and it looks like you are confident and you're shaking on the inside. And you're like, I don't even know if I don't feel comfortable with this content. I don't, and plus you got personal things going on in your life that nobody even knows that you're dealing with. Girls, we just have to do it anyway.
We sure
That's
do.
what every great leader does.
Well,
every great leader.
And you look at you. So one of the points that I want to talk about, and I want to spend just a minute here, is that you don't arrive and then grow into where you're at. You grow and then arrive. So if you think back, Tresa, let's go back in your mind. Let's go back 7-8 years. Could you have ever imagined yourself on stage speaking to thousands and thousands of women whose lives you've changed? God has allowed you, used you to impact. That is something, had you seen that vision or known that was coming way back 7-8 years ago, you might not have done a few things because that might have scared the pants off of you.
Oh, you got the wrong girl. You got the wrong girl.
So you definitely have to grow to arrive at where you're called to be.
I agree.
And let's talk about what that looks like in business, because most of the ladies listening are here because they are in business. A lot of them real estate investors like ourselves.
Talk about it.
What does it look like in business?
I think there's a couple things. First of all, it does start with a mindset that I'm going to do this. I can do this. God's going to bless everything that my hands touch and cause it to prosper. So it's a mindset that believes. But then the next thing, girl, is taking action. Taking action, actually doing the things.
Oh, so important.
Actually doing whatever it is that's going to make you money. And
and
that's
take you to the
hard.
next
It's
level.
going to take you to the next
Yeah.
level. So wherever you are today, what you have to do is, what is my next step? Because everybody that's listening is in a different position, a different, area of life. And you're like, what is the next thing that I need to do?
Yeah.
And then do it.
And do it.
And then do it again and again and again.
You know, we talk a lot about building a legacy, and you can't build a legacy without action.
That's right.
You've got to take action, ladies. Get in and do the work. Get into the classes. What are the
MasterClass.
the master class, and then there's the trainings that are provided through the network. You know, if you're a real estate investor and that's how you found us, get into that and really dive in. But don't just sit there learning. You know, we can read and learn things all day long. We can get the head knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's not until we take action that we're actually going to make a difference for anybody, especially our families, you know?
And that's really what gives you the confidence. People think if they read another book, listen, take another seminar, that's going to give them the confidence. That's not going to give them confidence. It's going to give you more knowledge, and we need that. But what is going to increase your confidence is when you take one small step, and then another small step, and then another small step. And now all of a sudden you begin to go, oh, okay, this is working. Or even if it didn't work out perfect, you learned something from it.
Well, here's what we've got to realize is that we have to learn to make decisions faster. We have to trust our own discernment. Ladies, we feel it in our gut. We know when a decision needs to be made, especially the big decisions, We have to let go of perfectionism. Like you said, do it ugly sometimes, but just do it. And then leading before you really feel ready. You had to step out and lead that little class in that little room before you could get in front of thousands and lead thousands,
You're exactly right.
So I think that that's really important for us to look at that as we're starting to take these actions is the things that we're going to have to do. But you have to grow. You have to be willing to step out and grow.
And I hope that this is inspiring somebody to do that today.
Yeah.
If they're sitting there and they know that they just haven't done the thing that they need to do.
Yeah.
That's what this whole talk is about, girl, is just taking that step and expecting that something good is going to come.
Because you're going to learn something every time you do it. Whether it turns out good or bad,
right.
You're going to learn something. So let's talk for a minute about the difference between faith-based growth and hustle, because we're not talking about just getting out there and hustling. We're talking about kind of more calculated, planned, prayed over action steps. Faith-based mindset doesn't mean passive, right? It means obedient, aligned, and disciplined. That's what we're going for. So God isn't asking us to grind ourselves into the ground and, to be exhausted all the time. That's not what he's asking. He's asking us to literally partner with him using our wisdom that he has given us.
A grind is saying yes to everything and just thinking that, I got to go from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, and that's hustle. And some people they think they respect that, or that is not it at all. I believe in just the opposite. I am all about a schedule and time blocking and thinking what really needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. And I talk a lot about taking a lot of things off your plate.
Yeah.
There's seasons for things. Maybe you've been volunteering for something, at your church for 5 years, and that was awesome. But maybe that season is up now.
Right.
Maybe you need to let somebody else take that over, and you now work harder at your job or your business or whatever it is. So I am all about prioritizing. Look, not just hustling for the sake of hustle, but look at my life, look at my schedule, look at what I'm doing and say, what do I need to say no to? What do I need to mark off so that I can do the right things and prioritize what's going to make my family happier, healthier, wealthier, and all of those things.
And that takes spending some time with the Lord and in prayer, because I think there are things, like you said, we're doing good things. We're serving at church. We're serving in, other nonprofit things. We're doing things that are good, but that doesn't always mean that we need to continue. Sometimes we need to step aside so somebody else has the opportunity to step in and serve and do something.
Seasons for everything.
Yes, there really is. And I think that just takes some prayer and even fasting sometimes to figure that out, slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
Resting without guilt. I know there's a lot of people that they don't feel like they're, full day's work unless they're sitting at the office from, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and that's not, I don't think that's what God is calling us to do at all,
I agree. Well, there's practical business mindset shifts. If we're talking about business and going back to the mindset, we have to become very practical. And there's some very, mindset shifts that have to be made when it comes to business. And one of them is scarcity mindset. And girl, I had a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk about this. I grew up very, very, very poor. And if that's all you know, you're going to have a scarcity mindset. I mean, more than likely.
For sure.
And then I was able to do better than I had done, and and I was making more money, and I had a profession and all of that, and so my mindset had shifted, from very poor to just comfortable. And then as I became a real estate investor, my goodness, I had to completely shift my mindset to abundance and to prosperity.
But that takes some responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it takes there's guilt around it. There's a little bit of shame, like who am I to make this money? And you won't make that kind of money if you live in shame and doubt and fear. And so you've got to start shifting that mindset. Hanging out. I'll tell you something that's so helpful is hanging out with other people that are walking in that abundance, and they have that expectation. And then you just find that it starts to rub off on you. And understanding. I had to understand that God wanted me to be blessed so that I could be a blessing.
Exactly. Which
And
is
when
the
you get
stewardship
that
you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you get that revelation, then you start, the Deuteronomy says that it is God who gives us the ability to create wealth.
Yeah.
It doesn't say He gives us wealth. He gives us the ability to create it. And I believe that's what He's done with real estate investing. He gave me this ability to create wealth, not just so I can have a bigger house and all the things, but so I can be a blessing to all of those around me, and I can give back and make a difference.
That's right, but that takes us to the parable of the talents, right? Where he entrusted the master gave the certain amount of talents, and one buried it and didn't do anything, and the others, made a little and he gave a little more, and then the one made quite a bit, and the more that he entrusted him with, the more he was able to give because he knew he could trust us, right? So that's what I feel like God's brought you from that place of poverty, being poor. He could trust you there because you didn't. I feel like I can see you probably worshiping as a child. I know your walk with the Lord started when you were really young, and you didn't know the difference. So you just gave thanks for everything you had, even though you didn't have very much, and you didn't know you had very much until you had a little more.
Yeah.
But then you praised Him there, and you gave, and you stewarded what He had given you to where that increase just continued to happen, right?
Yeah, you just reminded me of a story, and I've always just gave what I could. I remember when I was just a single mom and living paycheck to paycheck, but in our church we had outgrown it, and so we were going to build a new sanctuary, and so they were doing the building fund.
Yeah,
we've all been involved in that at some point in our life.
Yeah.
And I loved my church, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I tithed already. I gave my little 10%, but I wanted to be able to help be a part of that.
Sure.
And I remember making this pledge, and this is going to sound so crazy, of $25 a month on top of my tithe that I was going to put in that offering to help grow this little, build the sanctuary. Well, $25, y'all, that's one of my kids' lunch money. That's, that was a lot of money at that time. But I did it, and I remember every single time, I can get emotional just thinking about this because every single time, I didn't own a home at the time, and I would put that money, once a month, I would put that money in the offering. I would hold it in my hand, and I would say, Lord, I thank you that as I build your house, you'll build mine. And I would drop that $25 in there, and I look at my house now. Yeah. It didn't come overnight. It didn't come, it was many, 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 many years later. But I think I'm walking in the blessing of that obedience.
Right.
And so I'm so grateful. God is always faithful. He's always good.
Yeah, ladies, are you listening? That is a great story about just showing the obedience of what He does when we obey, even in the small things.
Yeah.
Even in the small things.
The little lady gave her 2 mites. And that $25 was my little 2 mites, but God saw it. So,
That's right. All right, a big one is learning that growth requires discomfort. And I don't like this, but if everything feels safe, you're probably not stretching. And I have to admit, shamefully, I've done this. I have just sat in my comfort zone and refused to get uncomfortable. And seasons have come and gone, and nothing changed. Nothing
That is
happened.
so true. There's always going to be, something new that we have to face. Learning new systems. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, I could talk about that one. I'm not a tech person. And I had learned how to do my job well. 25
Yeah.
years in the
Sure.
and then whenever I had to become a real estate investor, oh my gosh, there was so much tech involved.
Everything new.
And I was scared, and you have to be willing to learn it if you want to change your life. Instead of just declaring, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Listen, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us.
Amen.
So we're going to have learn new systems. We're going to have new boundaries. We're going to have new habits. Oh my
Right.
gosh, that's a big one. And
Yes.
then new levels of discipline. I feel like we could talk about this one for hours.
We could talk about that one for a long time because a lot does have to change sometimes, getting out of that comfort zone and staying there for a little bit and doing the hard things, right?
Because you don't notice change very quickly. When you have a new, if you work out 3 days in a row, all of a sudden you don't have some abs.
Right.
It takes a long time.
consistency.
It takes consistency over
Discipline.
and over. Over and over and over. And then you gradually begin to see a change. And so it's hard to stay with something when we
Well, and
don't
that's
see the immediate
that's
results.
the same in our business. There's a lot of ladies, there's a lot that have started their real estate investing journey, and they marketed and they marketed and they marketed, and it was months, 9 months, 10 months, whatever, until they got their first deal. But I tell you what, the thing is not to quit. You stick with it. You continue. You have the discipline to continue doing it, knowing that God is going to bless you. If He's called you to it, He's going to equip you for it, and then He's going to bless it because you're going to use it for His glory, right?
So good.
So yeah, it's just, you just got to stick with it and be disciplined about it.
Yeah, it's always a numbers game when you're talking about real estate investing.
Yep.
And so many people will give up before they get that first deal.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, your story of, what is it, 57?
57 doors.
57 doors you knocked on, and I think about that a lot, Teresa, and I really don't know that I would have kept going. I'd like to think I would have.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that
put
was
myself in a
discipline.
position to, I burned the boats.
Yeah.
I quit my job. I walked away. It was like, what are you going to do except keep going? And not that I am saying everybody else should quit their jobs and, do what I did, but I am grateful that, it did push me just to keep going.
That was another step of obedience, right? Because that was a
leap of faith, for
you
sure.
quit a job, the security. You left that security of that career, not just a job.
Yeah.
Anybody can get a job sometimes, but you had built a career,
Yeah.
and you literally walked away from that. That's a big step of obedience, and then you had to have the discipline to continue going even when you had no, you just kept going. So yeah, that discipline, it's impressive. And I hope the ladies that are listening hear that. And it encourages you, to just keep going and stay firm in your discipline.
Yeah. Well, we want to leave you with this question. Who are you becoming while you're building? Because God cares as much about you as He does the business. He
Yes.
wants you to become this woman who is confident and strong, courageous, that's taking leaps of faith.
Absolutely.
Not just being this timid, fearful, with these old mindsets hanging on us. He cares about all the areas of our life.
Yes, He sure does. He really does. Growth doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen intentionally.
Yes, it
does.
really does.
Ladies, if this episode ignited a spark in you, please subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And share it with your friends. We want to make a difference in your life, help you build a legacy, the one that you dream of for your family, and continue the journey with you. We just want to thank you so much for taking time to join us today. Until next time, we bless you. Be brave and dream big. Listeners, if you're aiming for financial freedom, dreaming of designing a life you absolutely love, or just curious about how real estate can transform your future, you're in the right place.
Yes, ladies, if that sounds like what you want, our MasterClass is the key. It's easy to understand, super straightforward, and packed with all the secrets you need to start investing in real estate confidently and successfully. Why wait to build your dream future? Join us and let us make your dreams a stunning reality.
Just click the MasterClass link in the notes below.
And we can't wait to begin this journey with you.